Hello and a warm Collisions YYC. Welcome to my guest this morning, Mr. Charles Osuji. How are you doing, Charles?
Very good, Tyler. Morning.
Thanks a lot for coming on, man. You know, Calgary, guilty as charged, 1 degree of separation. You and I have crossed paths, but never formally got a chance to hang out. So thanks for coming on. As everyone who knows, who listens or knows me, I do this first and foremost because I get to meet really interesting people and have really focused conversations about something they're excited about. So with that in check, talk to us a little bit. Let us into the tent. You're the managing partner and CEO at Osuji and Smith Lawyers. What do you guys do? What do you focus on? What's your world look like? And let's go from there.
Absolutely. First of all, Tyler, thanks for the opportunity to be on your show. Your show is actually popular, just to let you know.
You know what? A guest that leads with a compliment has already raised the bar.
The
Thanks,
popular
brother.
show,
Thank you.
it's definitely an honor to be here. The firm Osuji and Smith Lawyers started back in 1980 with Mr. Smith as the founder. Mr. Smith took me on as a student of law in 2013. I became a lawyer in 2014, and then shortly afterwards, there was an opportunity to buy him out. I took the risk. We're going to talk about all of that.
Oh, nice.
I took the risk, bought him out. We've grown from 6 people in the last 5 years to 42 with 27 lawyers. We operate a general practice, doing everything pretty much. Criminal, business, employment, corporate, family, personal injury, all of it. The plan is to have different lawyers focus on different areas. So we have different departments with managing lawyers, including immigration lawyers managing different departments in the firm.
Fabulous. How old were you when you quote unquote took the risk?
I was 30.
Nice. And I'm curious, for all the entrepreneurs, did the people in your life think you were crazy? Did they support you? Did you have both? Did your mom told you one thing, your dad told you something? I'm always curious of that journey because everyone looks back, oh, wow, that's amazing. That worked out. But at the time, it was probably a very different conversation. I'm guessing.
Right. You're actually right. But the twist with my situation is I thought I was crazy. But I had 2 or 3 people in my life that didn't think so.
I see. I love it.
So that was what happened. When the opportunity came around, Mr. Smith came to me with the option to buy him out, and I said no. It was a flat out no. He came again. I said no. I said no 3 times. Then he brought it up the 4th time. I was like, you know what? Let me find out from one of my mentors. Let me just validate my no, just so that I'm on the right path. And then I was on, in a breakfast meeting with this mentor, Mr. Rundle, and he was like, why are you thinking twice about it? Do it. We're going to support you. Nice. From there, I went to another mentor, went to a brother of mine, do it. And that was it. That was when that mentality shift happened for me, and I started seeing it as a possibility.
That's amazing. I love that you had multiple mentors to go to. I think that is so critically important and often overlooked. And as we've all heard, but I think life can be a lonely journey, certainly business ownership, entrepreneurship. How important was it? And were you very deliberate about creating those mentors in your life, or was it situational? And I think it's a superpower. And for the people that do it, I see the difference.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As first, coming from Nigeria, mentorship wasn't as formalized. As it is here. In my experience when I was in school, you would have access to uncles and professors, teachers, and all of that, but nobody actually defined that relationship as mentorship. You just had people that you trusted who could go to for advice. When I came to this country, I realized that it is a thing. It's actually something that has to be, you have to be intentional about it. I appreciate that. How far you go depends on the people that you hang out with and the people you surround yourself with. So I got more intentional when I came to Canada with mentorship, especially as a newcomer, as an immigrant. I had imposter syndrome. I was not sure about my journey. I wasn't sure if Canada was going to accept me. So it was very important for me to surround myself with people who could see further than I could and help me in that journey. So I got intentional about it.
I love what you just said. People that can see farther than I could, because you can't see the label when you're inside the bottle. There's so many metaphors that go to that, but people that can see farther than I could. When did you? How old were you when you immigrated? And did you come right to Calgary? From was it Nigeria to Calgary?
Yep. I was 26.
We could do a whole episode on that, but like, you like imposter syndrome. Had you already been in law school? Like, what was the journey? I just appreciate landing in a new environment. I moved to Alberta from Montreal when I was 26, but I was still inside Canada. Like, I'm just comparing, and people are like, oh, had you been here before? I'm like, no, I literally packed up my car and moved here because I knew one person. So like totally different, no comparison, but just kind of my journey versus even your journey, understanding it.
Absolutely. My oldest brother, Dr. Osuji, sponsored me to Canada when I was a bit younger, but I came permanently in 2011.
Okay.
At age 26, as I said. I had already finished my law school back in Nigeria. I was already called to the bar, but I had practiced for just a few months. So I didn't have the experience. I didn't have, that validation per se. I pretty much started my journey right from the get-go in Canada.
So imposter syndrome kind of twofold, very new to even being a lawyer, let alone being in a brand new environment. So just to add some more layers on top of the whole thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you hear stories about people who didn't make it, people who were professionals in the other life and they came to Canada, they're driving cabs, not in any way suggesting that driving a cab is anything, untoward, but people who couldn't continue in their career path.
Yes.
For whatever reason or the other. So I had tons of stories coming my way. And of course, self-doubt. And, this is an uncharted territory. I sounded different. I looked different. My education was from a different country, from a different university. Many people I was conversing with hadn't even heard about the university I went to at the time. So I had every reason to believe that the road to success was going to be impossible. Until I started talking to people
but you came anyways. I just want to like that. But you still came.
I did. Absolutely.
And so you land in Calgary. So your brother was here. So there was a bit of a network. So I'm assuming that had a huge. Obviously, that's a difference maker. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So there was some soft landing there, I would admit. Having to come into the country, you have a place to stay for a few months and put your house together. That was definitely helpful. But what I didn't have was professional network. I had to start that from the scratch. I had to get intentional about joining mentorship organizations like Calgary Regional Immigrant Employment Council and a bunch of other mentoring organizations. From there, I started getting connected to folks who were able to show me the ropes and help me out.
How critical were those organizations? And like it's so easy, and I say it myself. Oh, Calgary, it's so it's great and it's inclusive. But I had a new Canadian say to me, yeah, once you're in, it's inclusive. But if you're out, you're still out. If you're on the other side of the wall, you don't know where to get in. Right. Did those organizations, was that a key avenue or kind of, get a hole in the wall, if you will, to get to the other side?
Right. It was a game changer. For an organization like CRIAC, it was a game changer. Through CRIAC, I met the executive director, my very first mentor, Mr. Randall. The beauty about my connection with him was not necessarily the people that he introduced me to or the opportunities that he connected me with, but the psychological intervention that meeting did for me. For the very first time, I was sitting across a lawyer who had practiced for over 30 years, and this lawyer saw me as a lawyer. And understood
I love that.
Yeah.
You see me not as a fellow professional. Yeah, that's huge from an imposter syndrome perspective. That's very real.
Yes, that validation was critical because prior to then I was different factories with steel-toe boots and hard hat, and I would tell someone I'm a lawyer. They say, "Get out of here! What are you talking about?"
The story is not believable because I see you with your work boots on. Yeah, whatever.
Exactly. We laugh about it, but it did leave a number or two on my psychology. And now,
let's be honest, you're 26, 27. That sounds grown up, but it's kind of not. Like, let's be honest. Like, I thought I was grown up at that age, but now I look back and go, oh, wow, no.
No kidding.
No.
No kidding. So sitting across from him, talking about my journey, how he was going to help me succeed, how the prospects for success were there. Again, I can't remember everything that we talked about that day, but I still remember how I felt. I still remember how that conversation made me feel, and how emboldened and strengthened and more resolved I felt after that conversation.
And that was how many, like, that was a few years ago too, like from the perspective of 2011. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. This was happening early 2012. That's how far away it was. But I still remember.
At the time, I'm curious, did you believe him? Because like it's a lot to go, wow, is this too good to be true, right? Sometimes we have the yeah. I was sensing that a little bit. I was like, I think your bullshit meter was going like, I don't know about this guy who wants to help me.
It sounded great, right?
Yeah.
I loved what he was saying, but
I want it to be true. I want it to be true.
yeah. It sounded great. I remember when after Mr. Rundle, the next significant person in my life that I met was Mr. Smith, my former partner. The first year or two, Mr. Smith would tell me, Charles, you're going to be one of the best lawyers in Calgary, in Canada. I'm like, right on.
But just feeding positivity into you the whole time. That's awesome.
And that is the beauty of mentorship, when you have people whose eyes light up when you walk into the room, who think highly of you, whether you believe it or not, but this is how they think about you. You have
someone else can see your potential through their eyes. When you can see your potential through your eyes, that's an amazing mirror. When it's somebody who's typically older, has credibility, you're like, well, this person, like, clearly they get it. And if they think this about me, shit, maybe it's true.
Right. Absolutely. Having that dose of positivity, having been surrounded by that dose of positivity every day, it is important. And I can tell you I've come very far because of these people in my life. Even when I was looking to buy the firm out, I had every reason to say no. In fact, I did say no.
Yeah, three times.
3 times. And Mr. Smith would be like, Charles, what are you afraid of? Look at how well you're doing in your own personal practice.
I love that he knew you were wrong.
Yeah, he did.
He did. He knew.
He did. At this point, Tyler, I was bringing the most money to the firm. I was bringing the most number of clients, but I still did not believe.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
I could take it further.
The difference between, like you said, like you can look at a spreadsheet and see the numbers, but if it's not in your core, and that's a journey for people to be on. And I think so many of the people I have on the show are founders, entrepreneurs, used to be employees. And, through the last few years, obviously the word entrepreneur has become a lot more favorable in our society than it was when I was a kid. That was what you did when you couldn't get a job. Now, but there still is that level of like, am I good enough? Imposter syndrome. I love it. I bring it up. Anytime I speak anywhere, I bring it up. 80% of people admit it, 20% lie about it. Everybody laughs in the room. Like, it's such a real thing. And I am glad that we're giving it a little bit more airtime, because then it normalizes it a bit, right? Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. There's no stigma with it. Imposter syndrome is a blessing.
Tell me more about that. Tell me more.
Yeah, it's been a blessing for me, because with imposter, I'm on an edge every day.
The razor on the razors, yeah, totally.
Yeah, I am bringing 150% to my practice every day, and I can tell you that with imposter, there isn't room for complacency. There's no space for it, because at any given point in time, you still feel that you haven't gotten there. There's more work to be done. There's more credibility. There's more hard work. There's more people to meet. There's more there's more ceilings to break through. So it all depends on the mindset. It all depends on how you look at it. I see it as the fire burning in my belly, pushing me to do better, achieve more, help more people, and make more progress.
What do you tell? And I'm assuming we'll get into how you now have created a culture of mentorship, which I'm guessing boldly that is what it's like to be in your organization. Talk to me about if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, okay, but I've got imposter syndrome to that level that it stops me from, like, what other ingredients do you need? Because I agree with you. That's imposter syndrome to me has always been that little version of me on the shoulder pushing. But I know a lot of people that they don't take the step, imposter syndrome actually pushes them back. What, in your experience, were the other ingredients that allowed it to be a catalyst, not a roadblock?
That's a very good question. Get yourself a tribe of supporters.
Love it.
And I call this board of directors. In different aspects of your life, have a director in that board. Once you have people that you surround yourself with who hold you accountable, people that you tell, here is what I'm going to do this year. I'm growing my firm to the biggest Black-owned law firm in Canada, and that's my plan for the year.
Amazing.
I'm going to check in on you. I'm going to check in with you in 6 months' time. You have people that truly respect you, want to see you succeed. You have them around you. You tell them your goal, and they hold you accountable. Imposter syndrome might do its thing, but to an extent. Yeah. Because you have to provide account to these people who hold you in high esteem, who are willing to lift you and support you, prevent you from falling. And if you do fall, they're there to lift you up.
To not make it land so hard. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because you're still going to fall. That is part of the journey, right? That's part of the journey. Yeah. I just want to get banged up. I don't want to break both legs kind of thing. I love the word tribe. I think that's such like board of directors, and you can use corporate speak, but for the average person, you say the word tribe, it immediately conjures up, it takes a village to raise a child. Like, there's so many comments, I think, that come around that. In your organization, and I don't know, it sounds like you've had the same experience to me. You're like, oh, there's no one wants to help me. I'm like, I disagree. There's people out there, people love to help. They just have to ask.
Let them in.
As long as you show up. Like, you got to keep your end of the bargain.
Yeah, absolutely.
So talk to me a little bit about, I'm only imagining, and I know a few people that work at your firm, that's how I got introduced to you. Talk to me about how you've now deliberately created a culture where I'm assuming that this is just how it works.
Very good question, Tyler. Remember, my journey started with people who didn't know my heritage, who didn't know the school I went to, who did not have any of those tribal connections to my journey, to my upbringing. I'll give an example. Mr. Smith, my interview with him was sometime in April of 2013. This guy didn't know me from Adam. He was, 45 years older than I was at the time? And I am now.
Not only age, culture, geography, like every possible difference. Every possible difference.
His last name is Mr. Smith.
That's not lost on me, for sure.
And here I was. This man wanted to see me succeed. We were in that interview room. He was looking for one student. He had interviewed someone else and given that person a chance. And, fortunately for me, he had already invited a conversation. He was like, no, let's just honor this conversation. And right in the middle of the conversation, I saw that he could see something in me. He could see the fire. He could see the drive. We bonded on religion. We bonded on the fact that he was a teacher in his other life. My father was a teacher, was a principal. We bonded on a few things, a few shared values, making some of the artificial divides a little inconsequential. Here we were, someone on paper, very different, but looking to hold my hand and see me succeed by taking me on as a student. That is one of the moments in my life I will never forget. And that was a pivotal moment that shaped the trajectory of my goals, my value system, how I'm looking to give back to the community. That raw aspect of mentorship, not caring what the other person looks like. You just want them to succeed, which was my experience with Mr. Smith. From the day he interviewed me to the day he took me on, and the day I became a student, I became a lawyer in the firm. That is the driver of some of the things that I do in the firm. Mentorship is at the core of our culture. I have and diversity as well. Of course, we've kind of hinted at the diversity.
We have, without saying it directly, we've talked all around it. We've talked all around it.
Exactly. When I was choosing a name for the firm, I could have gone with a more mainstream name, Charles Osuji. I was like, no, that doesn't reflect the diversity, which is at the core of my journey. I want Osuji and Smith. I want people to see an African sounding name with a Caucasian sounding name sold together.
The most Caucasian sounding name.
The most, yeah, it doesn't get more Caucasian than that. Sold together and see how magic happens regardless of that.
I love how intentional you were about that. Mm-hmm.
So that I started with the name, and then I went on with the composition of my practice. When you look at the website, it looks like a small United Nations. You have
I was looking at it this morning.
Yeah, you have folks in their 70s, you have folks in their 20s, we speak over 25 major languages in the firm. No matter who you are.
Did you say over 25 languages?
Yeah, 25.
That's it. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Very intentional too. Wasn't coincidence. So diversity
I love the nothing by accident. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Diversity is at its core. Not just diversity, mentorship. Now I've started a program called Foot in the Door Initiative, FIDI, which is a program that I founded last year that provides internationally trained lawyers with Canadian experience.
Oh, amazing.
As an internationally trained lawyer, I didn't have a community per se when I came to this country. It was a struggle to find mentorship. It was a struggle to find a place to article as a student at law. I had over 200 applications. There was no callback. Even volunteer applications, nobody was calling me back because there wasn't...
I'll work for free. I know.
Yeah. I didn't get a call back. So this program provides internationally trained lawyers with first-hand Canadian experience as they come into the country. We've helped over 250 people so far. Right now, we have about 30 candidates actively. We have about maybe 10 or 15 in the office as we speak.
Oh, wow.
These folks are joining lawyers in their consultations, going to court. I'm trying to replicate that experience I had with Mr. Rundle. I'm trying to replicate that in as many people as possible. I have one of my lawyers who came into the country and joined the program 5 days later. He walked into a law firm as a lawyer. 5 days later. And
you saw him as a lawyer.
I saw him. And he felt acknowledged. He felt recognized. I trusted him to take notes as a consultant. I trusted him to follow a lawyer to court and make notes. I trusted him to...
You trusted him to be a lawyer.
To be a lawyer. So that is the whole idea of that program. And we're looking to partner with many law firms in the city and across the country so that whatever we're doing here is replicated in other places.
Is that a challenge for international lawyers coming to Canada? Like, you sound like... And I'm not it sounds like you lucked out, and I always use the word luck very loosely because luck is a weird thing.
Of course,
the harder I work, the luckier I get. But you're deliberately trying to create that opportunity. Is there a risk that you come to Canada as an international lawyer and end up doing a job that isn't being a lawyer? To speak about any job as being lesser than, to your point.
I understand.
But if you train for a lawyer, you want to be a lawyer.
Of course. Yeah, the risk is very high, unfortunately, Tyler. Okay. The risk is very, very high. Partly due to ignorance, partly due to lack of network, right?
Yeah.
The lawyers trained abroad have built professional network elsewhere, and they come here, they start from the scratch. So that is one. You're competing with folks who are locally trained, who have webs of connection, right, from kindergarten to high school to university to law school. So the chances of them getting in is higher. So that is one. Secondly, ignorance. Many law employers here don't understand the trajectory of an internationally trained lawyer. What do they really do to get retrained and requalified? Do they go through certain academic qualifications? What do they do? When people hear that you're trained abroad, so there's that bias, that lack of knowledge of what this person has really done. Is this person qualified to practice here? So all of those factors play to the detriment of the internationally trained lawyers' journey in getting in and getting their foot in the door.
When you think about, obviously, you said diversity, equity, inclusion, all the different acronyms and the way you can present it. Are firms also starting to realize that diversity of background, diversity of training, diversity of learning and skills, and the fact that are we starting to see that as the advantage that I believe it is, especially as the world becomes more the borders become less and less every day, right? It seems that way.
Yes, it's getting better, Tyler.
Okay.
I'm happy to say that it's getting better. My journey back 10, 11 years ago isn't as dire as the journeys of folks right now. For instance, this FIDI program wasn't there before. Now there are more internationally trained lawyers who are successful, who have their own firms, who understand the plight of internationally trained lawyers. There are more success stories among ethnic individuals, newcomer individuals.
Well, you're normalizing it, which is the key to making it acceptable. Everyone's just like, oh, of course. Like the day you know you've made it is when no one even talks about it to a certain degree, right?
Exactly.
So if I'm, being yourself in Nigeria, and my own ignorance of not understanding, just sheer the lack of opportunity. Like, what is the main reason if I'm an internationally trained lawyer to go, wow, I want to come to Canada because quality of life, bigger opportunity? Like, what are some of the main drivers? Just, again, admitting my ignorance.
Absolutely. Well, I come from Nigeria. Nigeria is a very prosperous country. Tons of hardworking people, smart people, super intelligent. The problem that we're having there is leadership problems, right? You have talented youth, you have educated. An average Nigerian has maybe 1 or 2 degrees, right? Talented, educated folks, but the folks at the helm of affairs in terms of leadership aren't presenting an enabling environment for the harnessing of these talents. So that has pushed a lot of folks to migrate from the country to other climes and countries such as Canada, US, UK,
interesting,
what have you, where their talents would be more appreciated. And it's unfortunate.
That was a very diplomatic way you just positioned that, Charles. Thank you. You put your lawyer/politician on hat right there. I'm like, well, it's potentially, we're just going to call it lack of leadership.
Right.
Yeah, I know. You can Google and see that. But the level of education is always something anyone I've met from those environments, those cultures, the level of education, the multiple languages, the degrees, like, it's impressive. Sometimes as Canadians, I'm like, we need to step up our game here. But I'm being tongue-in-cheek a little bit, for sure.
Right.
Challenges along the way, like we just talked about the core challenge of coming to a new place and fitting in, imposter syndrome. But it also felt like you had some doors that were opened. And is that a Calgary phenomenon? Is that a Canadian phenomenon? Like, obviously, you've probably got connections all across the country. This podcast does tend to lean to a little bit more positive. I do Calgary. I do believe we have some superpowers here, but I also believe we have things we can do better at. What's your experience just in challenges that are maybe Western Canada specific, or do you look at it more as a broad, like just Canada as a whole and how we can do better?
Well, my experience in Calgary is you have a lot of people willing to help. It's only in Calgary that you would send an email to a random stranger on LinkedIn asking for coffee.
Yeah. And they say yes. They say yes.
85% chance the person's going to say yes. My goodness, where I'm coming from, you have to go
That's
through.
That's how I got you on the podcast. I just sent you a LinkedIn message.
There you go. In other jurisdictions, you probably have to go through 10 to 15 people to have access. So that is something that Calgary, and I'm sure to an extent across Canada, that is one thing that they have. And that is beautiful. That has worked for me. I talked about my first meeting with Mr. Ronda. How did I meet with him? I just sent a message on LinkedIn. I thought he was going to ignore it, but he did not ignore it. In fact, he booked a meeting and we had a meeting and the rest is history. So nice. So Calgary, I give that to Calgary. We have people who are willing to help. The only thing I see though is the knowledge gap.
Okay.
It needs to be, it's a bit wide. It needs to be bridged as much as possible. We talked about the knowledge gap, the journey of international trained lawyers, and not just international trained lawyers, international trained professionals. I'm seeing within the law space could be extended to other spaces, IT, engineering, accounting, or whatnot. It's very important for Calgary not just to focus on opening up the doors of immigration, but there's also something to be said about integration, right?
I like that. Immigration versus integration.
Exactly. Immigration versus integration. We're not doing excellently well with respect to integration. Calgary is doing the best that it can, but I think they can do better in terms of integration. We need to have programs that provide experience first-hand experience to international trained professionals.
Exactly what you're doing with your program. But if I think of engineering, I think like you can just go down the list of professional designations and it would apply.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the reality is you applied for positions that they're asking for Canadian experience. They might even tell you that, but that's what they're looking for. They're not sure.
Yeah, that's what you don't read between the lines when your last name isn't Smith. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Let's call it what it is. Let's call it
exactly my point. Yeah. But with this program, I'll give you an example. Every week we've had about 2 or 3 people get jobs through this program.
That's awesome.
Simply because an employer out there has looked at the fact that this person is with a reputable firm, has done some work, or has been accepted by a reputable firm. Therefore,
well, you de-risk them. Like that's really what it is. If you look at the business, you're just de-risking that individual.
Yeah, exactly.
In my eyes, whether the risk was real or not, if I perceive it, then it's risky to me, right?
That's exactly.
Back to your point about like what I see is what I believe, and if I see it as risky, as we have more success stories and more examples of it, the stigma changes. But that takes time. Sometimes it takes generations to change.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
That's. I love it. I'm just, thinking about so many business owners I know we can't find skilled labor. We can't find this. We can't find that. Yet we have individuals who can't find jobs. There's a gap here somewhere that sometimes doesn't make sense. You talk to one group, you talk to the other group. You're like, what is going on here? Like, where's the middle? And I guess it's messy. It takes time.
Yeah. We need to be more intentional about integration.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Which you're doing clearly with your firm. Talk to me a little bit about the world of legal services, if that's a broad way to say it. Technology's changing everything. AI is coming at us left, right, and center. Sometimes overstated, sometimes understated. But from your experience, what are you seeing in terms of disruption in your space, in your profession?
Well, the good thing with I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
The thing.
We will be the very last sector.
Okay. All right. Last sector standing with humans. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Mostly because of how slow law as a profession reacts to technology. So slow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so slow. When before COVID, everything was all in person. Even all my consultations were in person. And it was normal. It was the way to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, because that's the way it was always done, right?
That's the way it was always done. And then COVID happened. I was able to log on my computer to appear in Edmonton. Before COVID, the client would pay me at least $2,000 for travel to Edmonton.
Just to have a meeting.
And I could go to Edmonton and the court adjourns the matter. Nothing gets done. Client pays me to come back.
Yeah.
And COVID happened. All of a sudden, I'm able to log in remotely to a court in Fort McMurray, a court in Edmonton, in Ontario, in Vancouver, without stepping my foot out, without a client paying through their nose to cover that.
So just think about the accessibility and the barrier that reduces to get quality representation.
Absolutely. Oh, talk about quality representation. When you are consulting with a client who is talking to you from their living room, this individual is in the most comfortable space that can be.
Yeah. The psychology that creates.
Yeah, of course. They are vulnerable. They are more open. They're not distracted by other things. They're not distracted by the formality of the conversation,
which for most people is very foreign and very uncomfortable.
Of course,
when you find yourself in those.
Of course. We are talking to someone who is in a living room. The person wants to drink some water, goes to the fridge and gets some water, and then comes back and continues the conversation. It makes a whole lot of difference from a psychological perspective with the kind of services that we deliver. You want folks to be as comfortable as possible to tell you all the mistakes that they've made without keeping anything away from you.
Because only then is when you can actually help.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
You're not telling me doesn't help the situation. I know. I have not. Anyways, I won't speak about personal experiences. But anyways, the more honest you are with your lawyer, the better it's going to be.
Right.
No, right. It's good to talk about there's convenience and there's cost, but there's also a psychology to it, which I appreciate you sharing that.
Definitely. Even when we designed my second location, we moved in here a year or so ago. I told the designer, I don't want a law office.
Yeah.
Design is far for me.
Be the place that your clients actually enjoy to come. Yeah, that's
exactly.
When we built our marketing, and as a marketing agency, it's a little more expected. But I had a consultant years ago. She goes, and she was years in the industry. Said, the most fun as a marketer was to go to the editing suite because they had couches and drinks, and it was like the Mad Men. So when we built our office, we're like, let's make it feel more like a living room and less like an office. And clients would comment all the time. Like it was so little, but it wasn't a traditional Calgary. In marketing you can get away with it, but in a law office, there's a certain image that comes to mind sometimes.
Yeah, I didn't want that image at all.
Maybe a spa.
Tyler, I'll invite you to the office one of these days.
I will come down for sure. I can already picture it just chatting with you.
Yeah, you understand what I'm saying. So that psychological aspect is critical to the delivery of services. What else do we see? I mean, we're still toiling with ChatGPT, OpenAI, and all of that. We don't know its place in the legal space yet. We're still waiting for the Law Society to provide us with more robust guidelines. We've had a few lawyers get into trouble.
There's been some that have been quite public.
Right, they've had ChatGPT court cases that don't exist. Because of that, we're being very careful.
We're not going to blame technology for that. I think we're going to blame the user.
Of course.
For being, that sounds like, but I think we've all made, and those, of course, everyone's looking to point but to your comment though, technology moves very quickly. Most regulatory bodies, the Law Society moves very slowly. So technology is and it's accessible on our the chances to step in it by accident because it makes it feel so commonplace when it still is a very, very new technology.
Yeah, I completely agree.
It's interesting days ahead, Charles, for all of us.
It is. We try to be ahead of the curve as much as possible. At the same time, being mindful of the fact that we are heavily regulated.
Which kind of as a user of services, I'm glad you're regulated. Like there's pros and cons, right? It's
exactly.
It can't be the Wild West. You don't want your lawyers to be making things up.
Yeah, absolutely. So
other markets is like, because globally, obviously, you have so much exposure to international humans that come from other parts of the world.
Right.
Is everybody struggling the same? Has anybody got it figured out? That's maybe a weird question, but
well, it's still a struggle. To be very honest, it's still a struggle at this point. Who knows what happens in the next 2-3 years? Who knows how that changes the way we deliver services, or even the type of clients we have, or the type of instructions that we receive from clients. When clients
the situations you're being brought in to deal with, right?
Yeah. You can tell. A client can tell you, look, this is what I want. Clients are becoming more assertive. They're more in control of how the services will be delivered to them.
Interesting.
Because they'll be armed with a lot. A client can now do up that same question that they've posed to you for consultation, put it on ChatGPT, have some first-hand information as to what they're dealing with. And in the consultation, you realize that they're more intentional about the questions they're asking. They're not asking you open-ended questions anymore. They're more like challenging the quality of the work that you're providing to them. So, the lawyer-client relationship is experiencing a shift in terms of who actually has the control.
I love the change in power dynamic, which again, people are becoming more empowered about their health.
Yes.
And I have a few doctor friends that are very frustrated because everyone doesn't show up. They show up now with a thesis that they're presenting to their doctor, not just a question.
Right.
And if you tell me what to do, I'm going to go home and research that. And I could, of course, it's happening.
It happened to me not long ago. I had a client who worked for, I think it was Shell, abroad in Eastern Europe. Had issues with Shell and was looking to get some advice. This issue happened maybe 3-4 years ago. The very first thing I spoke to the client was limitations. And the client was like, "No, Charles, I have looked into that."
Let's move on. Next thing.
Let's move on. I know limitations are an issue. The question is, how do we circumvent limitations? And that was new to me.
Now you're having a dialogue with a coworker.
Right. I'm having a dialogue. I'm talking to someone who is not very ignorant as to their rights. Because
you're not talking to a victim.
I'm not talking to a victim. I'm talking to an informed client.
That's interesting. And that kind of makes sense if you look at the way the world, as we become more empowered and personalized by these devices in our hands, right?
Right.
Good. Sometimes to our own demise. I will say that too a little bit.
Right.
You know what's the most dangerous kind of information? A little bit.
Yes.
It sinks.
Yes.
Hey, we've alluded to it in this call, and something I'm starting to ask my guests. I have this amazing resource of smart people that I get to talk to. You talked about Calgary and in Western Canada in general. We don't live in an island, but some of the things that we will help each other. We will respond to the email. Where do you think that comes from? Have you put any thought into? Everybody says it. Oh, Calgary, we're different. I'm always a little bit curious about the why. Is it rural background? Is it how new our province is and compared to other parts of Canada or the world? I don't know. Any thoughts on maybe where that special sauce or that Alberta advantage, to overuse a buzz term, like any thoughts on where that comes from what you've learned as somebody new to the province?
That's a very good question, Tyler. I think the fact that Calgary is a melting pot contributes to that. There is maybe 1 or 2 degrees of separation from folks who are either fourth generation or second generation. Yeah. There's an immigrant. Everybody has some level of immigrant story.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Right. Either personally or someone that they know or love or trust or somewhere in the inner circle. There is that relationship. We have that connection to that journey of folks leaving everything behind, everything that they're comfortable with, people that they knew, to a different city. I don't know whether it's because of the newness of Calgary, is it because of the composition or because of the cultural diversity? I don't know what that is, but everyone on average has a connection to an immigrant story.
To that experience.
And that provides, gives people an opportunity to have some empathy and being open to helping. Look at my journey, and I can count, how many people that have been there at every stage of the journey. And these folks didn't know me from Adam.
Yeah.
These were strangers, as strangers can be. These are strangers, but they helped me. Again, I'm not going to forget their help. That has...
that becomes the positive cycle of it, right?
Exactly. And it just keeps going on and on and on.
Talking about generational trauma, but there can also be generational positive. It's easy to talk about that, and you carry your baggage around, but you can also carry your good bags around too, right? I think it's good to flip that.
Yes.
I consider myself a refugee from Quebec, and if you know that market, it's as an English speaking bilingual. But I moved to Alberta, and I was like, oh my god, this place is amazing. Everybody's helpful. People don't boo the Canadian flag at a hockey game. So but you're right. That was my own journey. Very different from moving from Nigeria, but still. You and I are both from somewhere else, and we built a business here. Same, but very different. Yeah, but at the same time, I don't believe I would have been able to build the successful business that I have here in Montreal in the same way. There's more hierarchy. It's harder to get in. Like Alberta, if you were willing to add value, people were willing to give you an opportunity. And I experienced that here. I fell in love with this province very quickly because of whatever that little thing, that entrepreneurial spirit or whatever you want to call it. And it didn't take me long to see it and to benefit from it. And now even why I do the podcast is to share other stories of the same thing. If you talk good enough, soon everyone will start to believe it.
Exactly. Another thing I've learned, Tyler, with Calgary is people are attracted to excellence and not what you're excellent at.
Right? That's a good... Charles, you got some excellent quotes today. I'm gonna go back. Bumper stickers from Charles today. These are good. I love that.
Yeah, people are attracted to excellence and not what you're excellent at. That was one of my very first concern. Taking that leap of faith and owning a firm. I was like, are people gonna care about how I sound? The fact that I'm black, I didn't go to school here. Would that impact my success and my progress? And I quickly realized, of course, that there's definitely, racism and all that is there.
Yeah.
But if you focus on excellence and being able to bring value to the table consistently, emphasis on consistently, and being able to help people go from point A to point B consistently, people begin to lose interest in how you sound like. And what you look like. That's such a nice
way to say it.
And where you come from.
Stop mattering. Yeah.
They stop mattering. People will come back again and again and again and again. And that is something that I love about Calgary. And that is why, now Osuji & Smith is the largest black-owned firm across the country.
Amazing. That's how.
And it only happened in Calgary.
Yeah. That is. I love it. I knew we were going to have a good chat. Now, people ask me, "Are you positive about Calgary?" I said, "I'm so positive because I talk to people like Charles, and they tell me these amazing Calgary success stories, which is what I love. It gives me rose-colored glasses for all the right things."
Right.
Oh, that's so. What's expanding outside of Alberta? You've got a couple offices here. What's just always curious of the future? Anything you want to share from a future plans perspective?
Absolutely. We just acquired an immigration law firm 2 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. With that acquisition, we have presence in Yukon, we have presence in Ontario, we have presence in Dubai, and we're looking to expand into other claims. I find immigration easily scalable versus other practice areas.
As far as an actual legal model, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the federal legislation and all that.
More consistency.
Yes. My big plan is to create a proper national firm out of Osuji Smith. Amazing. And I think we can do that. It's possible.
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it now. But I understand that I'm doing it, and there's much bigger visions and there's much bigger goals. And yes, when you talk to someone with goals, they're always on to the next. I do really appreciate that. How do you celebrate the wins in the short term, knowing that you've always got a bigger plan?
Good question. If you follow our social media, we celebrate something every week at this office.
That's 100%. Yeah. The art of celebrating the moment is also something to be overlooked when you get too goal-oriented.
Yes.
So good for you guys.
Yes. Yeah.
We're always celebrating something. That's a great.
Always celebrating something.
That's a good recruiting mantra to do itself. Yeah. As a marketer, I'm like, there's a campaign in there for sure.
Yes. And that is very intentional. We don't want to lose sight of the small wins, the bar calls, the birthdays.
The living in the moment as well as planning for the future. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's a good lesson I could take sometimes. I focus on tomorrow sometimes and forget to today, but I'm working on it, Charles.
Right.
I'm working on it.
Right.
Charles, so good. Thank you for coming on. And thanks for just I love the lost art, I believe, of a good old fashioned conversation, which is what I think we had today. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
If somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's your preferred? Do you like LinkedIn? Do you love carrier pigeons, smoke signals? What do you like? There's so many ways.
Yeah, LinkedIn is good. I have a strong presence in LinkedIn. Our website as well. We have over 100,000 visitors to the website every week. So our website is there.
That's awesome. Wow. I would take a wild guess that most law firms don't get that kind of traffic. I don't know for sure. I don't have the stats, but that doesn't seem like law firm numbers you just put up in front of me. That's impressive.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Because you're telling a powerful story.
Yes, absolutely. It's a story of diversity, a story of mentorship, a story of overcoming and rising above your circumstances.
I love it. Charles, thanks so much for your call today. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for the chat. And it was good to get to know you a little bit better. Thank you.
Yeah. Tyler, thanks for everything that you do in the community, giving me a platform to tell my story. And you're a great interviewer, by the way. So
thank you, Charles.
Yeah, this is one of my best. Yeah.
He starts with a compliment and ends with a compliment. Everyone, I see the strategy here. I like this guy. Thank you, my friend. That was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.